got a plain IKEA cup. I should get an IKEA sponsor. Hello, you alright?
Yeah, good, you?
I'm just making the tea. Do you want one?
No, I'm good, thank you.
No one wants tea, mate. I'm like the best tea maker, and no one ever wants a tea off me. I don't understand it. Fam, we need to get you mic'd up if that's alright. Yeah. You don't want a drink?
No, I'm good, thank
Nothing?
you. Oh, just a water actually. That'll be fine.
Lucky I bought some, innit? in my weekly shop. It's alright, it's only, is it Lidl special, mate? $1.79 for 12.
Oh wow.
Please welcome the legend, Fran Kirby, or as I know her, the mini Messi. Welcome, Fran. Thanks for coming to sit down with me and pretty much go through some of your career and let the people have an insight. But let's start from the beginning, so the early days. What was it that got you into football from I'm talking early days? Baby days, yeah. Baby Fran.
To be honest, I don't really remember. Like I just remember playing football.
You had a brother? You got a brother, right?
Yeah, I got a brother and he did play.
So
yeah, he played like a little bit, but not like, crazy amounts at the beginning. But yeah, I literally don't remember what it was. I just remember growing up with football. Like my dad is really big, big footballer. My mum supported football. She didn't play, but she really enjoyed football watching it, and she fancied all the footballers. So that was
when we were young.
Yeah. So I think it was just something was always in my family. So yeah, I mean, and then obviously as I got older and started to realise that I actually really enjoyed it, it became kind of like a competition for me to be better than my brother.
You signed for Reading, if I'm right, age 8? The academy 7-8?
Yeah, 7-8, yeah.
And was that your first entry into being at a team? Or did you start in a grassroots team before that?
No, I didn't.
So straight into Reading?
Straight into Reading. Well, I would play at school and do these things, but I was never really part of a team. So to speak. Yeah. And then I went down to a development because I was playing football in school with, Reading community. And they were like, oh, why don't you come down to our development girls session and come and see? And then, just got asked to go down to the development. And then I went to the development for a couple of sessions and they were like, we really want to get you into the actual academy. And I was terrified. I was like, no.
What terrified you? What was it, just being in a team and...
Yeah, and I wasn't used to it. Yeah. And I wasn't used to being around just girls. As well. I'd always played football with boys. So then going into it, and at the time they only had an under-12s team.
So little Fran, age 8, playing under-12s.
And I'm small, so can you only imagine how much smaller I was?
I can imagine.
Yeah, compared to these girls. So I was like, no, I'm fine. I'm happy just doing my development. I'm happy just being here. I've met the girls now. I know who they are. And then, kind of found the courage to just go and do it. And then, loved it. And then I joined kind of a grassroots football team alongside playing with the Reading Academy because we weren't really playing games at that time.
So it was just training with Reading?
Yeah, just training.
So what was it, Fran, then, the turning point? You said you were struggling kind of, you didn't know if you wanted to be in that team with all girls. Like what changed for you? For you to then, as you mentioned, join a grassroots team and then obviously continue your development with Reading?
I think it was I just wanted to play football. There was no moment of me going, oh, this would be amazing to be in a team. I'm quite an introverted person. For me, this was massive, going to play for Reading Academy. Even though it wasn't anything back in the day, it was such a big deal for an 8-year-old girl going in. So I think the turning point was I just wanted to play. And I think I remember my mum saying to me, she was just like, what's the worst can happen? Yeah. You don't enjoy it, you don't go. I did enjoy it and I just kept going back. And then obviously it expanded into under 10s, under 12s, under 14s. And then it just kind of, went on.
You forgot that you were scared to be a part of a team, right?
Yeah, sometimes I still walk in a room and I'm like, oh.
I actually didn't join a team till I was 11. So I started I was one of those. I'd play with my mates at youth club and we'd start 5-a-side teams. But actually, being in a proper team, it wasn't till I was 11 and playing underage at under 14s. But I was similar but I think it was because I love football is why I kept wanting to go. And then you kind of forget about all the things that you had fears about. So I totally get it. Who was your biggest influence in terms of then kind of, let's think about it, you've been at Reading and you're kind of getting a little bit older now and now it's getting a little bit more serious. We're talking kind of England youth teams. Who was your biggest influence? Because I'm saying reading or looking from the outside in, Phil and Kelly at Reading at the time, in terms of your development?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, I was really lucky at Reading. I had some really, really good coaches from a young age, which I don't think is very common back then. I always just felt that I had really good people to coach me. And, you know, there was moments where, you know, sometimes it would get too much for me, even at that younger age, in terms of people talking about me, in terms of, I always say how I would spot an England scout.
Yeah, okay.
You know, they'd be in their long coach's coat with the England badge, standing with a clipboard, obviously making themselves not aware to anyone that they're there. But like, I just remember just always wanting to just enjoy it.
Yeah.
And it sounds like such
Without
a cliche.
pressure, right?
Yeah. It's such a cliche, because I think when everyone goes, oh, what's your advice, like, from my younger daughter? It's such a cliche to just say enjoy it. But like, that's the reason why I played.
100%. And it's so difficult, isn't it? Like, in terms of you're wanting that enjoyment, but then everybody else sees this potential, this wonder kid. And it's like, how do you protect this kind of wonder kid and not put pressure on her and allow yourself to enjoy it? And do you think, so you're talking, did you hear those outside pressures in, we've got this wonder kid, we've got this talented young footballer that potentially, did you feel that pressure of, I'm saying, hearing how good you were?
Do you know what? My mum was the worst for it. Like, honestly, like,
aren't they just though?
Yeah. But like, you know, every mum has the best daughter.
Yeah,
like, or has the best footballer in their family. But it was just, like the coaches, like, we'd always have like an end of season sit down and review thing, and always they were like, oh, your goal should be to get in the England team. Like, after everyone. And I was like, that's great. Like, okay, cool. Like, you think I can do that? I never believed it.
They always have these, but they always have these, like, I mean, when I worked at the RTCs, they always have like, and I get it, you want to have like the biggest goal, right, to achieve. So obviously England and doing that.
Yeah.
But in terms of those smaller ones and ticking them off before you get there, it's like we bypass them. And you're so focused.
It's like, oh, you're already good enough. Yeah. You're going to play.
So you're going to be there. It's just about when.
Yeah.
And so those little margins or as you say, little goals, planning. Yeah. They probably forget those steps, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Is it the same for you or?
Yeah, I think so. To be honest, I never really let it get too engraved in me. I was quite good at kind of shutting out that noise, mainly because I didn't really know if I could do it.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't have the self-belief.
You knew you could do it as in, you didn't have the self-belief in your ability?
No.
Oh, wow.
So like, when we used to do like the things where you'd rank where you think you were, I'd always rank myself lower. But that was just because I've always had such high expectations on myself. Even now.
Yeah. Well, I know.
Yeah. Like, even now, like, if I do something bad, I'll forget all the good things I've done. Yeah. And I will just focus on, like, people are like, oh, you scored a hat-trick. I'm like, yeah, but I should have scored 4.
No.
But that's just how I've always been, and that's how I was when I was younger. So I don't think I ever, like, I didn't think it was achievable for me to get there. So I just was like, oh, okay, like, you guys can talk about it. Like, you probably say it to the next girl coming in. Yeah. Like, that was kind of like my attitude. That's a good way of approaching it, right? Yeah. Then you actually can just try and enjoy it, if you can say that. Yeah. So I think when you get older, you realise the pressures more. 100%. And it affects you so much more. It does. You read everything, right? You hear everything, you see everything, and Okay, so what do you think the turning point is in terms of actually you thinking, yep, I can make it. I can go and play at the top level. I mean, if I was to look in from the outside, that goal when you was at Reading against Arsenal, a bit like Bergkamp's goal at Newcastle, where you just spun it round at the halfway line and off you go. I mean, absolutely ridiculous. That for me was like, wow, we found the next Kelly Smith. And that was my reaction to seeing that goal in a Reading team that wasn't probably established compared to one of the best teams in the women's game at the time, Arsenal. Yeah, I think I didn't really... Even when I was at Reading playing, you know, at the women's side, I didn't have the goal that I was going to play for England, because I knew where Reading was, and I didn't know if it was achievable. Yeah. And I think, like, I'd heard a few rumours, you know, with the women's team at the time, and it was so hard to get in. Yeah. You know, which it should be. Of course, you should earn your stripes. Definitely. Like, absolutely. So I was kind of a bit like, oh, well, I'm playing in the WSL too. Like, I'm kind of doing well. I'm scoring goals. Like, and I think it would be them moments, like when I scored against Arsenal, and that goal. You know, the girl who passed me, I always thank her. I'm like, you made my career, Lois, because she passed me the ball, and then it was like the most bobbly pitch in the world. Yeah. So I think that helped as well with the flick. So do you think that was kind of like when eyes were like on Fran, like Fran Kirby? Okay, we've seen her do it in WSL2, for example. Now she's coming up against the best in the women's game, and she's able to deliver in a team that probably shouldn't even be competing. Yeah, we actually beat Arsenal that game as well. And I think that was obviously, like you said, the moment where people were talking about it. And we had Jane Ludlow as well as the manager there. So I think obviously people were taking more interest in Reading because Jane was there as well, obviously an Arsenal legend. So I think that definitely helped me. And yeah, I think, but even then, like I then got selected for the 23s. Like I kind of like bypassed a lot of the youth age groups at England and went into the 23s. And then even then I was like, do I deserve to be here? Like, no, but you know what I mean? Because I'm still, I was the only one from a WSL2 team that even got into the 23s. You know, like, so I've seen all these girls who play week in, week out, or, you know, they're on the bench for like these big teams. And I was like, I'm just this young girl from Reading who's just all of a sudden started like scoring
superstar.
goals. Yeah. And then obviously I got invited to come and train up with you guys.
Yeah.
And I was so nervous. Like I
didn't know what it was. I was always like this talented kid. Like when you was on the pitch, it was like you wasn't shy.
Yeah, no.
But it was like
person.
at dinner or like in your room or around the team and meetings, you're quite like, keep yourself to yourself and kind of do your talking on the pitch. That's kind of the Fran that.
That's kind of still the same Fran.
You haven't
to
changed?
Be honest. No, I've never changed. I'm a little bit more outgoing, I would say.
I do see you now and again out with your dog and the coffees and all that.
No, I've just always been that way, and I've always coming into an environment with big personalities as well as this young girl who's just always been with the same team.
Yeah.
You know, when I first went into Chelsea, I was the same.
And I was going to talk about that big move because you got a big move to Chelsea, right?
Yeah.
It was like headlines. Chelsea have signed Fran Kirby. You spent 9 years of your career at Chelsea. I mean, unbelievable. For me as a Chelsea fan, I was buzzing. I was like, we've got the best kid on the block. How was your time at Chelsea then? Because obviously I'm sure they bought you, did they?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I mean, they bought you. So the pressure even of that back then, like I think you were the first one to be bought for money at the time.
I think so, yeah.
A female player has been bought in the WSL.
Yeah.
It was unheard of at the time. Or they had to pay you out of your contract, right? Whatever it was.
Yeah, I didn't know that they had to buy me either.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
When I went through the process, I was like, I'm just going to go to a new club. And Reading were like, what? No, you're under contract. I was like, oh, okay.
So, yeah.
So like, obviously, I'd been at Reading for 14 years and it was a club that I hugely admired and owe a lot of, obviously, my career to. But I think it got to a point for me where I felt I was ready to take that next step. 100%. I'd been in around world-class players in the England setup. I got a feel for it. I was starting to get maybe a little bit frustrated at Reading because I felt the level wasn't what I needed to push on.
Yeah.
And obviously I spoke to Mark Sampson about it and, you know, it was kind of like a genuine like conversation. And he was just like, look, like if you want to go further in your career, you have to, you know, move on to the next thing. And I was kind of like, yeah, okay. Like, and obviously, you know, it did, you know, a few people were upset that I wanted to move on and that's completely normal. But I think where I was at in my career and, you know, I have these conversations with people all the time and like, I didn't leave to go to a team that was fighting relegation.
Yeah.
I went to a team that was going to be dominant for the next few years.
Exactly that.
So it's not like I'm going to a team where, you know, I'm going to be in a dogfight against Reading. It was like, I want to go on and see what I can do and be better, achieve things. And obviously I achieved more than I could ever have dreamed of, you know, signing for Chelsea. I knew that, you know, Chelsea were going to be serious and they were going to, you know, but to actually do what we did as a team all them years consistently, you know,
crazy.
It's crazy.
I mean, to kind of take that dominance away from Arsenal is crazy in itself. But you know what, I say it now and it's so difficult, right, when you're like in terms of yourself, in terms of your personality, right, when you're a loyal person, right, football and sport has no loyalty. But when you're playing, because you have these traits of being a loyal person, you feel like you owe this loyalty to the clubs. And I get it. And like, I mean, if I was to look back on my career, I'd be like, why was I so loyal to that team for so long? Like, why didn't I, when there was a move, just go and try and do it? So that's like, honestly, one bit of advice I'd give to players is that if you get an opportunity and you actually want to challenge us, a bit like Lucy Bronze, she just went and did it. She didn't think about what are people going to think about, I need to stay for another 5 years, actually stall my career a little bit because I'm going to be loyal because I feel like I owe you something. And I get it, like from Reading's point of view, mate, they've got a superstar and they don't want to lose you. But in terms of like, if they actually wanted you to be the best or whatever, they'd be like, you know what, I can see it. I can see where you're going and why you're going. And I mean, I mentioned it before about how many WSLs you won, FA Cups, etc. at Chelsea. How important or what influence did Emma Hayes have on you in that 9-year spell that you had there? Was it a rocky? Was it one of those like we have with managers?
Do you know what? I think no player can sit here and say that, you know, their whole experience, whether they're there for 2 years, whether they're there for 5 years, whether they're there for 9 years, I don't think any player can really sit there and say that everything was like this the whole time. You know, I have a lot of respect for Emma. And I think, you know, what she did for the club, for me and for all the other players, you know, was incredible. And, you know, she wasn't everyone's favourite. She wasn't my favourite all the time. You know, like, and I think it's easy to get caught up in your own feelings at that time where you kind of block out maybe how others are being treated. And I did that. And I think that's probably my biggest regret in terms of like, Emma loves me. So she must love everyone. But that's not the case. And I'm sitting there with a big grin on my face and there's someone sat next to me who hasn't played in 5 games. And maybe I haven't been as considerate as I should have been because my experience was so high. And
then it happens to you.
And we all want to play.
So
You know, whenever you have conversations with people and they ask you about how you're feeling, like I've seen it with myself, I've seen it with many, many other players. No player is happy sitting on the bench.
100%.
And you know, and for me to experience obviously that more so last year than I ever have done in my whole career, it makes you open your eyes to, this is horrible. Like, this is not a nice feeling. So now I'm like, every time I'm trying to get around people, or you know, and it shouldn't become that it's the 11 and it's the subs, like, because that's just awful.
Divide,
like, that's just not a good feeling. So yeah, I think as a footballer, we want to compete, and when you don't feel like you're even competing, that is really, really tough.
And competing because you are not competing, or because even though you're competing, you're not competing because you're not being looked at. Yeah, and that's difficult, because it doesn't matter what you do. No, you're not being looked at. So you can do whatever you could be on top form.
I scored 4 goals in training, and then I wouldn't even come on the pitch the next day. Like, you know, and that's just the way football is, and that's the way football will always be. And the one thing, I had a really good conversation with one of the male players at Chelsea at the time, and he had just arrived, and I was like, well, why did you come to Chelsea? He was like, as soon as a manager makes a decision on you, you need to leave. Yeah. Because no matter what you do, you're not going to change that manager's mind. And I think that was so powerful to me, because
you would have stayed at Chelsea forever if things didn't change. What I'm saying in terms of your loyalty to, I mean, there was opportunities before this year to leave.
Yeah.
And you didn't.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I had have left when I had them opportunities, maybe I'd have another trophy in my cabinet. You know, so, you know, like you said, like, you have all these things that you give so much to, but then when you don't feel like you're getting it back, it feels unfair. But one thing that I learned was, I can't let it impact me. I've got to turn up every day. Like, I'm not the perfect teammate. And like, there were some days when I'd turn up and be like, I don't even want to be here. I think one thing that I always had in myself was a competitive drive. So for me, obviously last year was probably the toughest for me in terms of that, in terms of game time, in terms of, you know, getting on the pitch for longer than 10 minutes at the end, or, you know, getting a run of starting games. I used training as my 90-minute game. Okay. So that's how I approached every day, was like, this is my game. So I need to leave here knowing that I've done everything I could to win. And sometimes it probably was too much. In terms of like my...
sometimes. But, and as you said, you're still probably getting overlooked, and it's
but like, unnoticed. As long as I leave knowing that I did everything in training, then I can hold my hands up and go, do you know what? She's better than me. She must be better than me because she's playing. And we had some fantastic players at Chelsea. Unbelievable players. So when you're leaving the training ground, I left the training ground probably 90% of the time knowing I've pushed her to her max and she's playing. So I've done what I can do. And that is really hard. To keep doing.
To get 100%. Especially when you've been the main player for so long, and then all of a sudden, from nowhere, you're kind of shafted out. So 9 years at Chelsea, in those 9 years, all the trophies you won, if you had to pick one, the biggest achievements in your career to date, what would it be?
I'd probably say keep going.
Underrated, right?
Yeah.
So underrated. I mean, people always measure success on trophies, and I mean, you've won loads. So it's obviously, when you look back on your career, you'll look back at them trophies in the cabinet and be like, I did all right. Yeah. But in terms of staying at the top for that many years and competing and scoring year on year, double figures every year, competing trophies, being in the England team, it's so underrated. And no one ever says it.
There's so many things that we go through, and I think so many people see 5% of it. You know, I've been very open with my injuries and my illnesses. And I'm going to touch on them. We'll be here for 3 hours if we get to that point.
It's so true.
But like, those are the things that, you know, like, people think that you're injured and you just go in and you sit on a bed for 5 hours a day and get a nice massage. You know, it's not like that. I would have done. I wish it was. I would have been loving life for how many years. But like, it's tough. It's not easy. And I've grown up as a young girl, as we spoke about, as someone who just loves playing football.
Just wants to play.
And maybe there's been moments where I could have pushed through certain things and gone on to, you know, just keep playing. But I never felt, I always, as we spoke about my expectations, if I don't feel like I can give you 100%, then for me, I'm wasted. Yeah. Because, you know, I want to be able to give you everything. And if I can't do that, then I feel like I'm lying to myself and I'm letting my teammates down.
And you know what? Some people, I mean, I played on, I was one of that, you play on so many injuries and you're playing at like 70%, sometimes 50%, and no one on the outside ever sees kind of the injections you have to get you through 90 minutes or whatever it might be, the tablets that you're popping to kind of get you through a game because of how much playing football and for the club you're representing at that time means.
Yeah.
And then, you read and hear and all kinds of things, you're not performing this, that and the other. But actually, you don't know what it took for me to get on this pitch to play today. But let's move on to injuries because, I mean, you've had a few, and not just injuries, but illnesses. And most of these are like freak injuries and illnesses. It's not like your average pull of a muscle or a leg break or whatever. I mean, you've had some real tough times. What has kept you motivated? I mean, the resilience to bounce back. Like, what was it that, I mean, I could list them all off, but there's far too many and detailed ones that are complex and kind of hard.
I reckon
to
I
talk
could be a physio now, to be honest, with everything that I've gone through with my body. Like, I know exactly what that is. Like,
future career after the game,
exactly.
maybe?
Do you know what? I was driving here today and I was like, what if she asks me this question?
Yeah.
Like, I actually was thinking it in my head, like, when someone asks you, how do you keep going? And I honestly can't tell you the answer, but I'll tell you there's been many times where I've wanted to stop.
Yeah.
Like, there's been like some seriously close moments where I've gone, that's it, I've had enough.
But what stopped you from then not giving up? It being too easy to do that?
I think so.
And you being driven to kind of
prove people
wrong?
I think, like, I made a point about it in the summer, obviously, even just changing teams. I want to leave football in a place where I joined it. And that's with happiness.
Yeah.
And I think, like, I couldn't accept leaving when I had my knee injury because that doesn't feel right to me. I couldn't leave when I had my illness because I was like, no, I want to prove that I can overcome this. That was more of a proving thing. And then obviously in the summer now, there was real moments in the summer where I was like, I don't know if I want to play anymore. Like, seriously, like this summer.
Too young to retire.
Yeah, but...
Too much to give, still too much to offer.
But I'm obviously extremely glad I didn't because I feel like I'm getting myself in a flow again. 100%. I'm getting myself playing again.
I mean, goals, performances,
So I think, every time I've had that moment, I've been like, just go one more time.
Yeah.
And just every time it's just been a conversation in my head, just one more time. Yeah. And they will reach a point where I'm like, okay, that's enough.
I'm done.
But
it'll be a point when you're ready to say you're done.
And I know I'm leaving it happy.
Yeah.
And I would hate to leave football where I'm just miserable and hating life because then I'll look back on my career and probably there'll always be a part of me where I'm like, oh, but I didn't enjoy it anyway.
Yeah. I feel like that's what happens when people retire not in a good place, say at the club that they stayed at because they wanted to stay there for whatever reason, loyalty or whatever, and they hadn't been playing. You then are bitter towards what's happening and how you were then treated and everything. So you're right. You should always, in my opinion, leave when you're ready to leave. But on those injuries, so I mean, I never really had big injuries. I was quite lucky in terms of big injuries through my career. When I did get an injury and an illness at the back end of my career, just a few months before I retired, I was like, mate, I can't cope. There was so much going on, COVID, I had an illness, and you had an illness. So not a football injury, it was an illness. It was a kidney condition. You had a heart condition, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, this isn't football related. This isn't like something that I know I've got 2 months and I'll be back and I can start running again and I can start. It was completely different. Yeah. I ended up needing to get a psychologist to kind of help me through that process. Was anyone that kind of you lent on, or did you get psychologist or anything to kind of help you through those moments?
Throughout the process of being ill, our doctor, Francisco, was amazing. Doctors are special, aren't they? They're like special people. Like they're so caring. And he would I went through probably the hardest part of that illness at Christmas. And I called him on Christmas Eve, crying my eyes out, and he picked up the phone.
Crazy, isn't it?
And, and I look back now and I'm like, okay, one, you're really rude for calling him on Christmas Eve. Like, who does that?
Just wishing him a Merry Christmas, that's all right.
And just picking up that phone and being able to talk to him, and he was like, this is part of the process.
Yeah.
And just keep doing what you're doing, keep taking the medication, keep resting, keep doing all these things. But you just don't see the end. Yeah. And that was the hardest part for me. It was like, I went into the cardiologist, I sat down. I didn't think it was going to be anything. I'd experienced something, I'd collapsed or whatever. Crazy. But I didn't go in thinking, well, he's going to come back with this. And I just thought it was maybe like a panic attack or,
anxiety or something.
Or something. Like, I hadn't been feeling too well leading into that moment. So I knew something was kind of going on. But I just thought I was run down. I just thought that I was really tired from the season before. Or that, I was dealing with performance anxiety, performance depression, or whatever it was. So when they kind of sat me down and said, no, you have this, like this can either take 2 weeks or it can take 6 months. And I was kind of like, that's not very good.
Yeah. I mean, 2 weeks or 6 months.
Yeah, it's quite a big difference. Yeah. So Yeah, I think, and obviously I had my friends and my partner who was absolutely incredible throughout that whole process and accepted me for the way I was.
Yeah.
If I was my friend, I would have hated me.
As in accepted you, as in, medication change you?
No, just the whole illness changed me. Yeah, my energy levels, my awareness of being in a room. You know, I would invite people round because I wasn't going out. I couldn't really see anyone. So I'd invite people round, they'd come round and I would just be like this. And then I'd end up turning and doing a puzzle against the wall and they'd be sat there. Like, I just wasn't I wasn't there. But they kept coming.
That's crazy.
So, you know, like for me, that's special.
100%.
Because they could have turned around and gone,
yeah, what's the
point? You don't talk to us. Not that I do anyway when they're there, but, but you know what I mean?
You don't talk much. That's normal, Fran.
Are you ill? Like, or is this just a lie? Like, what's going on? Yeah. So I think like having people like that who understood me, because not everyone would.
100%.
You know, some people would have come round and saw the way I was and was like, we're not going back there. Like, that is what it is. So I think that was so important for me. And obviously Emma as well, you know, Emma was calling me every day, near enough, checking in how I was, you know, through that whole process. And she was asking questions of what else can she do? Like, is there anything else? And literally all I could do was sleep and take medication.
Crazy.
Those were the only things. Like, I would go do a shop. So for example, go to a food shop if I was home alone or whatever. And I'd be pushing the trolley and I'd have to physically take a break, like going around the shop. I'd have to like sit, like stand, holding onto the trolley, trying to like compose myself and like, you can walk.
It's crazy.
Like, so like
it's crazy
things
to
like
think
that.
that you're able to come back from it.
Yeah, I think there was definitely a point where I thought, I don't think I can. And I don't think I will ever get to a point where I'm not anxious about it happening again.
That's what I'm saying, because with injuries, you're kind of like, okay, you kind of when you go into your career, you kind of can prepare yourself for football injuries, football-related injuries. When it's health matters, they're the things that worry you the most. That certainly when I got ill, I was like, mate, I can relapse at any point in terms of my kidney conditions come back. And I'm like,
but that's
and
what
how I
said
felt
to me.
whilst I was ill is like,
you don't want that again.
You don't want that again.
No. I would much rather take pain
100%.
in a bone, in a muscle, than go through that process again. And experiencing that, I would never wish that on anyone.
Yeah.
Because of like you, like similar to you, like how you feel going through them moments. And
like my medication made me 10 times the size, and I was already big. So I mean, we're going to talk about weight in a minute in football, but in terms of body image, and it had a huge impact.
But when
on
you
me.
keep it a secret, like so, for example, like the first couple months with mine, we decided not to tell anyone, so I could get over the worst.
Yeah.
Because I was so agitated, I was so tired. The last thing I wanted was people to know. So it was just our Fran's just got a viral infection.
Yeah.
Then it got to like 1 month, and everyone was like,
and
obviously the Chelsea girls knew I'd collapsed. So they were like...
Oh, so the players didn't know?
No,
the players didn't know. Players outside of your club?
The only players that knew was Maren and Beth, because they were there when it happened. Yeah. I didn't actually tell Beth, but Beth knew, because you know, people don't just collapse in the house. So yeah, we didn't tell anyone, and then it kind of just got to a point where people were talking, and I wasn't coming into the training ground like at all. Or if I was going into the doctor's room and falling asleep on the bed while everyone was training. Like, so it got to a point where we had to kind of say like, look, this is the situation. But then probably the same for you. Like you said, your medication made you look bigger, but people don't know. No, but people look at me and go, you look like crap.
It's crazy.
But they don't know
what's going on.
Like I was so pale in my face. I was like nearly yellow.
Drawn,
So like people don't know that. And that's why I think from that moment on, I've always been quite level-headed with things anyway, but that moment on, whenever I see someone now, I never judge.
Yeah.
When I'm walking in the store and someone's, I don't know, acting a certain way, looks different, I never judge it, because I'm like, no, actually, I don't know what they are going through right now. And sometimes I wish people had thought that when they'd seen me.
Yeah. So let's talk about that then. I'm just going to jump and maybe we'll come back to that, because obviously you're talking about body image, and people would have seen you not at your very worst, because as you said, it took a couple of months before you were back in the public eye. But you spoke recently, was it Sky Sports, around body image and how it impacts you as a player. I mean, when I was playing, it was something that I was saying to people, this needs to be addressed. It has to be addressed. We had Fat Club at Manchester City. I mean, actually physically naming something Fat Club. We had Fat Club at Liverpool at the time, where you come in before everybody else, you fast, so you don't eat before you do a bike session or a walking session or uphill walking or whatever it was. I mean, I was nicknamed Fat Fara because Chelsea fan, and they used to say Frank Lampard was fat, and it was kind of Fat Frank and Fat Fara. And it's like, and you laugh it off and you have that banter with them. But actually, I was somebody that wouldn't let people see that it's affecting me. But away from me being at the dinner table, for example, on the training pitch whilst people are saying that, I was paranoid to death about my weight. It was something that I was conscious of throughout my career.
Yeah.
I actually felt better playing when I was a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
And when I was losing the weight and I was at my lowest, and I'm like, mate, I'm flipping tired.
Yeah.
Like, I can't deliver in the same way. Like,
muscles,
we were never treated as individuals.
Yeah.
And obviously, I thought when you come out and did this, I was like, thank fuck, we finally have somebody that is brave enough to talk about body image and the impact it has. Fans, clubs, whatever else. So talk to me a little bit about that, like in terms of the impact it had on you.
Well, I think for me starting, when I did the article, I didn't realise how big it was going to get.
Mate,
it was big.
And rightly so, it should be.
Yeah, and I was really happy that I did it because it's something that has kind of followed me through my whole career in terms of when you have a career that's stopped so often for the length of time that I have to stop, my body doesn't naturally just get smaller. That's just...
Mine's never been small.
No, but you know what I mean? It's not something that happens for me. And it might happen for others. I've seen girls who have been injured for a long time and they lose weight through the process. I was never that kind of player or person, and I never will be. And, you know, I would go through periods when I was out with my knee for over a year with my knee. I come back into training and I was bigger. I was bigger than I was a year ago.
Yeah.
But that's because I couldn't go for a longer than 20-minute walk. Yeah. Sometimes your rehab sessions are harder than when you're outside. Like the amount of upper body conditioning that you do. You have to fuel, but you're not burning it how your body is used to burning it. And, you know, each time I've come back from something, I have been bigger. But throughout that season, so I come back from my knee, and I think it was the 17, 18 year? Maybe 18, 19. Can't remember which year it was now. And I was bigger. And, you know, I had a conversation with Emma. I was playing well at the start of the season. Emma come to me and she said, I need you to get fitter if I'm going to play you more in the Champions League. And I think that was such a better way of dealing with it. Yeah. It gave me a goal. It wasn't a case of you need to lose weight. Yeah. It was, I need you to get fitter, which is absolutely right. I need to get fitter. So what do? I go to the gym, I go swimming. I do all these things to get fitter because it was a different way of wording it to me than going, you're a bit overweight. And then I went on and won the PFA Player of the Year. I scored multiple goals, you know, but I started that year bigger. And managed to sustain it throughout the year. And then the following year, I started to maybe not, I think I was more conscious of it, so then I wasn't fueling well enough. And then my performance dipped.
Crazy. And that's what happens, right?
Yeah.
You get to a point where people start to comment about how you look, whether it be in a kit or whatever, in your face or...
I scored 3 goals and then the comment was, look how big she looks.
It's crazy.
And it's like, why is that a narrative?
I'm saying, then you don't fuel enough. And then your performances dip.
Yeah.
And then everybody's questioning, well, why are your performances dip? What are you doing? Well, actually, what I'm doing is responding to your messages that I'm seeing on my Instagram or Twitter telling me that I'm big, and now I'm paranoid, and now I'm not eating and doing the things that I should be doing. Yeah. How important is it for clubs to kind of, in the way that they go about doing your body fats? Because we used to get ours put up at England, didn't they? When you got to a point where they're putting your body fats and weight.
Yeah, weight.
Like,
I remember
I don't
weight
weigh myself and tell everybody what I weigh.
No.
Because you are going to be judged on how much you weigh.
Yeah.
They have
especially if you're a smaller person as well. If I'm smaller and I weigh the same as Jill Scott, like it's a bit like, okay.
I mean, Jill Scott, it's like, I can't even look at Jill. She could have 10 cans of Coke and I'd have one and still
that's
put
what
on
I mean.
more weight.
Yeah.
But how much of a responsibility do you think they have in terms of that and doing that in the right way for players and for the mental health of players, because it mentally impacts people?
Yeah, I do think it's getting better. I do think that there are more conversations around fueling. And I've been quite vocal, obviously, with this, and even at Chelsea and even now at Brighton, you know, making people understand the importance of fueling. Everyone is different and everyone will require different things, you know, but for me, the most important thing is that when it comes to a match day, I have fueled enough that I can score a goal in the 83rd minute.
Yeah.
You know, that was important to me because I don't want to get to a point where I'm in the 7th minute and I'm like, I'm knackered. I don't know how much more I can keep going here. And that's what happens. Yeah. And I do think that was a downfall a lot of the time with our England
100%
experience.
We hardly ate England. I'd lose weight in England.
Yeah.
Just because you're scared in the morning to put anything more than a little bit of egg on your plate. Like, literally not even a piece of toast. And I'm like, guys, I'm starving. And a shot of espresso. And I'm like, I've got an espresso and a little bit of egg. And I'm going to the pitch session with the best players in England. It's impossible.
Yeah. And I think that had a lot to say, especially in that period where we just weren't quite getting it.
Yeah.
And we weren't quite, and people, I don't like to say, they're not fit enough. we are fit enough. We play for game every 90 minutes. There's so many other things that contribute 100%. To being this, and I do think that it's getting better. Yeah.
Do you think it's getting better?
I do think so. I think it's a problem in terms of, like we said, it's the public perception of people and how you want to look in certain situations. Like for me, it did bother me for a long time. I wanted to be the skinny one. I wanted to look nice in a dress. I wanted these things. And I went through a period during COVID where I got to that point. Yeah. But then I wasn't explosive. Yeah. I'd lost something in me. Like I had an amazing year that year, don't get me wrong. But then at the end, my body just crashed because I couldn't sustain it. I couldn't sustain that level. And I think, but during that period, it was great because people were saying, look how good she looks. You look the best you've looked. That was a comment that I got nearly every single day at the club.
I can imagine.
You look the best you look the best that you've
I bet
looked.
No one ever said, how do you feel?
No, they didn't, to be fair. And so I do think that there is this thing with, we associate weight with performance until maybe someone who's bigger isn't performing. Yeah. Like we never look at someone and go, she looks tired in the last 20 minutes. Oh, she's had a lot of games. Well, no, she hasn't fueled. Yeah. But then if it's someone who's overweight, oh, she's just not on it anymore. Yeah. She's washed. She's this, she's that, whatever it is. Like I think it's just so a completely different narrative between someone who is a little bit bigger compared to someone maybe who's not.
Mate, I just think when I look at football and I look at Wayne Rooney, right? If you was to get Wayne Rooney to be ripped or into like this kind
of... You wouldn't have Wayne Rooney.
Mate, his weight actually helped him. There's lots of players that you look at and think actually their weight. I ended up getting to a point in my career I was like, you know what? Skinny and miserable or fat and happy. And I was okay with being fat and happy whilst I played. And I was like, you know what? I don't care what people... But it took a long time for me to get there. But that's what I tell myself. I'm skinny.
30 years old it was for me, I think.
The times I wanted to be skinny, I was so miserable. I'm like, mate, I like food. Yeah. So being miserable, having no food, is not a good thing. No. And fat and happy was
But also
thing.
Like, if it's... I'm all for what... If it's affecting your performance... When Emma sat me down and said that I'm not reaching the limits in the game in terms of running, it's affecting your performance, it's affecting your recovery, it's affecting this. Yeah. I have no issue with that. Well, I remember when I had my illness and I remember I was on the phone to the doctor and I was like, is there any like specific diet that I need to go on? Like I asked her, I had a heart condition and I was worried about my diet.
Crazy.
Because I was worried about gaining weight that I'd lost leading into that process. And he was like, Fran, just eat anything you want. Yeah, he was like, fuel is fuel right now. He's like, if you want to have a McDonald's, go and have a McDonald's. He was like, don't care about this right now. You can fix it when you're better. Yeah. And I was like, oh, brilliant. I ordered a Nando's.
I'll have a Nando's. I was going to say, don't order something. I'll have 2 KFCs. So given how much, say, people's opinion of you when you played in terms of image, etc., impacted you, and obviously you've learned to deal with that and you've got your kind of coping mechanisms. What advice would you give to, say, a younger fan or a younger player now coming through to kind of help them if they're kind of going through those same sort of barriers, I guess, because it is a barrier in terms of wanting to stay in the game when you feel a certain way within it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think... I always think sometimes that when people ask this question, it doesn't really... Because if I had read someone said something about this 5 years ago, I probably wouldn't have listened because it still would have bothered me. Yeah. So I think for me sitting here now, to give advice to someone, it would be just be proud of who you are. Mm-hmm. Because
that's so hard to be, right?
And that's what I mean. I think for me to sit here and say that, people watching it will be like, oh, come on. Yeah.
Like, it took you a while. You're there now, but you weren't there. So.
You will get there. Yeah. You will soon realise that the only opinions that matter are those who are around you. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it's taken me to get to 31 to accept them. Yeah. But, you know, that is just the way life is. Yeah. And for me, I'm extremely proud that I was able to achieve everything I did, even when I started off at a point where people went, she's overweight. Yeah.
It's crazy. It's crazy to even think that.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So just before we move on, do you think there needs to be more education around fueling, diet, nutrition, all of those types of things in the game now, even though everyone's professional? Is there enough diet and nutrition advice?
I think so. I think...
Or education. It's more for me, even the education.
Yeah, and I think as well, like, you can't force people to eat. You know, you can't sit there on someone's plate going, you need to eat more pasta today. So you can't do that.
You never need to force me.
Yeah. I'm like, give me the pasta. I will have more of the pasta.
Yeah, me too.
So, you know, I think it's a difficult one because they can educate all they want, but if this stigma is always going around that you have to look a certain way to be a professional sports person, then that's always going to be in the back of people's minds.
True.
So you can police it, you can go around and look at everyone's meal or whatever, but you're going to then annoy people and maybe resent food even more. Yeah. So it's a really difficult one to go, okay, how do we manage this? How do we make this? I think the only thing you can do is educate people enough to know each day, if their week looks like this, how much should you be consuming on day 1? On day 2, on day 3, and map it out, breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, whatever it is.
Yeah. It's difficult though, isn't it? Because as you say, these are so like, it's just, they'll bring in somebody around diet nutrition, but it's just broad. It's just like, this is how we see it, but they don't, as you say, individualize it. So what will work for you might not work for me or the next person.
I might need 100 grams of pasta, but Shelley might need 10. Like, do you know what I mean? And that's just all, that's all different for everyone. But I think one thing that I notice a lot is the drop off in women's football towards the end of the game.
Oh, yeah.
And we can sit here and say it's not fitness. Everyone trains full time.
No, it's not fitness. It's fueling. I've always said it.
Yeah.
There was the new woman at England now, the nutritionist. I met her with M&S when I was doing something, and I was talking to her about it, and she was saying, look, there's a problem with
it's not just football.
England.
It's women's sport in general and men.
Yeah,
there's a lot of men that struggle with it as well.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think even in the men's game now, when you think of some of the injuries, but they and I spoke to her and I was like, I spoke to her about how is she getting on in camp, and she was like, people have had like some traumas, I guess, if you want to say, with some nutritionists that have been before in terms of what they can and can't eat, in terms of body fat shame and all of that. Yeah, and so it's about earning the trust. And she said it's going to take a bit of time, but she said the thing that I'm trying to get him to do is know in order to perform, you have to be fueled. So she kind of used the word fuel instead of like other words that people have used in the past. I thought it was actually really important. And then you went on actually to win the Euros. So I don't know if you were fueling any better with her. But yeah, I mean, it was great that then, you know, when you do fuel properly, you're able to go and achieve.
So many people have reached out to me, whether it's in England, whether it's in America, whether it's in Sweden. Like, you know, there's been so many people reach out and saying, thank you so much. Like, it's either they are going through it or a teammate is going through it. And for me to read that, it's like a validation of, okay, I'm doing the right thing. Like, I'm helping people who need to be helped.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, as I said, when that came out, I was like, I was proud of you for doing it, because I was like, mate, someone's had to do it. I've been saying for a long time, especially since I retired, I'm like, somebody needs to talk about it. It's a big topic within the women's game, and obviously because I'm focused on it, but in women's sport in general, where it's not spoken about. People aren't exposed. Like, people aren't being held accountable for some of the language maybe used or lack of education in those areas that are then exposing players to then get all this kind of trolling because of the way they look. So,
but I've seen players who I look at them and they don't have an inch of body fat on them. They're pure muscle, and they get it. Yeah. And I'm like, but you have someone who's actually an athlete.
But do they get it for not being good?
Maybe. Maybe they're just full of muscle and not very good at football. But you know what I mean, though? Like, and I'm like, we can't win. We can't win with this. So, I think it's going to be a battle that's going to go on for many, many years. It probably won't ever go away, because I think even in the men's game, it's still going on. So I think it's just more education around it, as if you can keep it in your circle and you can keep that motion in your circle, then I think it will be in a better place.
Yeah, for sure. Best advice. So let's come away from fat shaming and all of that kind of happens and the bad stuff. Let's think about the future of the game, because it's something that I'm always curious about. People always say, oh, where do you see the game in 10 years' time? And I'm like, my thing has always been, has to be sustainable. Yeah. We can't be putting out quotes, inspiring the next generation if we're not doing the grassroots stuff in order to provide a future for these kids. So where do you see, or where would you like to see the game in the next 10 years? And I'm talking bottom up.
Yeah, I think it's such a good conversation to have, because I think we talk so much, like you said, about inspiring, and we do inspire, going out on the pitch every day, playing at a sold out crowd at Wembley, but not every young girl is going to achieve that. Yeah. And how do we make the experience for every young girl, not ones who are in the pathway, who are going to come up to become the next whoever?
Fran Kirby, you can say it.
Yeah. How do we make them have the best chance of enjoying it, being better, getting better and improving? And for me, it starts at the youngest level. I'm talking 6, 7, 8 years old. Because obviously growing up for us, we never had that opportunity to go and play a lot of football. Or we did like with our friends or whatever. Like, so I think obviously it starts with opportunities.
Yeah.
And obviously, you know, there's more and more grassroots girls football clubs out there. There's a lot more playing at school, which is great. But I think, you know, we're still not quite there with it. Yeah. And I still don't think that, you know, there's all the opportunities available. And you still hear stories where girls get kicked off the Astro because a boys' team is coming on. Or, you know, or situations like that, or a girl's getting laughed at school. And I think it's just changing that perception of it. And just I was going to say,
how do we change, what needs to be changed and how can we change that perception?
I'm hoping that with the new generation coming through, it will be easier in terms of boys growing up. Yeah. It's normal.
I think youth winning the Euros.
Yeah, it's definitely made a big shift.
I mean, my nephews, etc., they were like singing, you know, women's football songs about individuals in the Euros,
but that's what we need. And I think when these younger boys grow up, it's not a weird thing to have a girl that plays football, whereas it was. You know, I was quite lucky. You know, I obviously had my stories in terms of how I was spoken to by other boys who I played against, but a lot of the time I was accepted a lot. Yeah. But that was because I was good. Yeah. So imagine if I wasn't good, but I just wanted to play football. Yeah, it would never have happened. I would have been out. I probably would have stopped playing. Yeah. So it's just, how do we create these safe spaces that girls will continue to play, but also give them the best. Like I say all the time when people talk about the injuries in women's football at the moment, I'm like, yeah, but the girls' academy don't do half as much as the boys' academy do.
That's what frustrates me in terms of giving them the best opportunity to make the game better, make the product better, because you're not preparing them, are you, to go into train with senior players, for example.
When then doing twice
gym
gym sessions a week, you're then putting them exposing at a higher level. And this is something that I will openly speak, like, there's not enough contact time with these girls. They don't get enough. They don't get enough. And when they do, it's about playing football. Yeah. It's not basic running mechanics. Yeah. How to land properly, how to absorb on the knee, how to do all of these things that, you know, you go to a boys' academy game, training session, 8 years old, and they're doing prehab. Yeah. The girls don't do it. No. I mean, it's creeping. It's creeping in now.
Sure, but I mean, in terms of consistent, in terms of every day, they train twice a week.
Yeah.
So like, you're not prepared. I've just seen the kid, is it Brown, come over Chelsea in the Champions League. There's been a lot of hype, but I'm sure maybe a year ago, she was only training twice. Yeah. I mean, yes, you'll probably go and do your own stuff, but doing your own stuff and actually it being facilitated is totally different. Now, this is our future, right? And then you're going to throw them into a first team environment without kind of having the tools and experiences of training every day. And we put them at risk, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think that is one of the biggest reasons why we have so many of these, you know, it's not just the ACL, it's so many other things that happen that people don't see. It's, you know, and if... I understand that it's not quite there yet in terms of the funding, in terms of the availability.
And why can't it be there? Because like, is it not a club's responsibility to, like they do the guys? And I get it. There's probably value in the boys' academy in terms of longer term sales. Yeah. But you're representing a club, so you're under that umbrella. Yeah. So if you're under that umbrella, surely it's your job to develop the player that you have equally as say the boys' academy, because they're representing your badge. Yeah, representing your club in all areas. Agree. I'm not saying I'm not comparing. I'm not saying, oh, Fran, you should be getting paid the same as James Milner, for example. I'm not saying that because you're at Brighton. But what I'm saying in terms of training facilities should be equal. In terms of access to recovery or whatever medical, they should all be equal. Yeah, from the bottom all the way through to seniors.
100%, and that's
more
the way
than
it
anything.
Should be.
And pay will eventually change, but that's at this moment in time. I guess that's way.
But that's why when I think you see so many people talking about the equality side of it, my thing is not the money. Yeah. Mine is the opportunity. Oh, yeah. Like, we have an amazing facility at Brighton. Yeah. And, you know, the academy girls come in and they do use it. But I'm talking at 10 years old. Yeah. What are they doing that's going to prepare them for when they get to 16 and they're making that jump to go from training twice a week with minimal gym work? They maybe do bands outside or, you know, hop and land or whatever it is. Like, I don't know, I might be completely wrong. They might be in the gym and doing things. But
they don't do much. I mean,
no. And I understand that when people are growing, you have to let people grow and you can't, you know, mess around too much, but you can still teach basic fundamentals and mechanics. So then you go from training twice a week to then going into, you know, under 16s, and then you probably look at under 18s. But if you're good enough, when you get to that age, you're looking to go into the senior team. And you go from training twice a week to then training 5 times a week with 2 or 3 gym sessions, with possibly a game, then possibly another game 3 days. You can't sustain it. We want to be successful in these tournaments. We want to win. So you need to teach people technically, physically, emotionally
as well, by the way.
Yeah. But also emotionally, mentally, dealing with standards being set on you. With, you know, sometimes you're going to hear something that you don't like. How do you manage that? Technically, in terms of being able to, you know, look after the ball, not just running around.
Yeah.
You know, watching football. How much football do these
people
girls
probably
watch?
don't even watch it anymore. We used to have to. We had to watch it.
Yeah.
We had to watch it.
I still watch it.
That was our only way to get better.
I sit there watching TV going, oh, look, like, I don't, you know, analyse the game or whatever, but I'll look at something and be like, he should have done that there. Or that's so good, look at what he's done there. Like, I watch it to see these things, and it just doesn't really happen anymore.
Doesn't.
So I think there's so many things that we need to keep pushing to get the finished women's England footballer. And of course, like I said, not everyone is going to get there, but how do we allow them to have a chance?
Yeah.
And I don't think that opportunity is there still. And that's what I would like to see change in terms of the sustainability is, for me, I want to play with the best players. And that's always been my case. I want people who come into the England team now, you are there because you are top level.
And it's not there yet. But I love the fact that you've said all that about kind of the sustainability, because I'm right down that route in terms of
if the product is not good on the pitch, the product won't be good off the pitch.
Of it.
So we have to maintain the level on it to keep building the fan base, to keep building the TV deals, the sponsorships, the money coming in. Because as soon as that goes down, that will be the first thing that's taken away.
Yeah.
If the WSL doesn't produce these good players and keeps consistently being an exciting league, you know, then who's going to want it on TV? Who's going to watch it on TV? If England stop performing when we go into major tournaments, then how do we sustain going, we want equal for girls, we want equal for this, equal for that? Because then, unfortunately, as a woman, you always have to do extra to get what you want.
For sure.
So for us winning the Euros, it got us our moment. But why did it take us winning the Euros to get it?
Yeah.
When we'd also, like, we'd never won anything, but we had been successful. We won a bronze medal, we got to semi-final. Like, that's still success in a major tournament.
Yeah.
So I think we're in a position now where we have to keep maintaining the levels, because as soon as that drops, the product will drop.
For sure.
And then we'll lose
sponsorship.
Everything.
Everything. A lot of things, you're right. So, Fran, that's kind of how you want and see the game in the next 5 years. In terms of you, and I'm not retiring you, but where do you kind of see your future after the game? Have you kind of been education whilst playing and kind of setting things up? Have you got things in place? Do you have an idea? Or are you just going to have a break and be like, you know what?
Go traveling for a few years.
I've got loads of money. I'm going to sit on the beach for a year and then decide what I'm going to do. Have you kind of got something in plan that you kind of think this is what I want to do after football?
Obviously, I probably would like to do a bit of like TV work around the women's game, because I think that that's important, that we still keep building that brand in terms of 100%. The product, in terms of what we give back, in terms of feedback. The women's game, because so many people are, I want to be a pundit in the men's game. It's like, mate, you have a duty. With me, we have to keep, as you say, raising the profile of the women's game, and get to the level you have to always keep building it. And I think
fine,
you want people who's doing the punditry who know what they're talking about.
Exactly, know the game,
and know maybe the players, know what style suits them, know the managers. And I think the only way that you're going to improve, like I said, it's always going to be about the product.
Yeah.
Women's football has now become a product. It's become something that people look at and people enjoy watching. So you want to have people who know what they're talking about when they do it. You don't want someone standing there going, well, they're playing a 3-5-2 and actually they're playing a 4-3-3. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you don't want that.
Right.
So I would like to do that. I mean, maybe I'd be a little bit too brutal sometimes, but I think the game needs to go there.
It needs that.
Yeah.
That honesty, I think that,
And I think as well, when I stopped playing football and, I look back on my career, I'd like to think that, anything that I do say is respected in the game, and people won't always agree. That's the whole joy of it, and that's all part of it. But I'd like to think that maybe if I was to share some knowledge, it would be taken seriously and not just as like a little token gesture thing. But I would love to spend a year on the beach.
That would be amazing. I mean, Lucy Bond's come out recently and said not many players can retire and kind of live off that money. I was one of those, Lucy.
Yeah, me too.
So straight into work.
I'm going to sell my house and
beach
get
for me.
off.
Yeah, maybe I'll do that. Sell my house and get on the beach. No, that honestly, Fran, that's been like brilliant. I mean, I could sit here for hours on end, but what I want to know is the best five-a-side team, right? But there's some little thingies in this. No goalkeepers.
Okay.
Doesn't have to be a formation. Really, all I want to know is the best 5 players you played with in your career.
Okay. Ji So-yeon has to go in there.
Yeah, unbelievable.
That's the first one. That's not even a debate.
Ji So-yeon, what a player.
Oh, unbelievable. So underrated, by the way. She did not get given the plaudits. But I think she's another one, unfortunately, that was playing when the game just wasn't where it is now. If she was playing now, everyone would be lining up to...
Yeah, sign her up.
Yeah. So she was unbelievable and a really, really great character. I mean, Sam Kerr probably has to go in there for me.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's just put her in the box.
Okay.
That's
I think goal scoring.
Yeah. I think, she incredible goal scorer. Works hard, really good team player.
Marin has to go in there, no?
Marin.
When I think about how good she was made for Norway,
Penalties.
I used to hate
penalties.
I'm thinking prime. I'm thinking like Norway. I'm thinking when she was centre mid. I'm thinking when she played in a back three, stepping in.
Yeah.
I would say she's very underrated. in terms of her quality.
She's probably one of the most underrated players at Chelsea.
Playing against her for Norway, and even at Chelsea, when you went into that back three, and she'd be that because she's naturally a midfielder, right?
Yeah.
So stepping in from the back.
She was put in the PFA Team of the Year, and she couldn't believe it. I was like, what are you talking about?
No, but I get it, because you know what people are like. They look at like, I don't know, attackers, for example, or kind of those.
Yeah, exactly. And like, even when she went through the period where she had obviously the really bad knee injury, to come back in and barely play and then step up in that Champions League game against Lyon.
There's so many of those players.
Okay, yeah, well, we'll put Marin in there then. So we've got Sam, G, Marin.
Would you put Kelly in there?
I never played with Kelly.
Did you not play with her at England?
No, she got injured on my camp.
I actually thought you... I
was devastated, Fara. Well, I trained with her.
Yeah.
And we were both in, I think we were doing like a passing pattern thing and we were both in the 10.
Yeah.
And I was kind of stood next to her like, you should just be on your own here. Like, there's no rotation.
Kelly's like...
So I never got that experience to actually play alongside her. But I mean, when I was there and we were in that moment doing the rotation, she was always talking to me about where I should move and, all of the things. So I would off watching her, 100% put her in there.
But you didn't play with her, so we're not...
I didn't play with her.
Two more, Fran. Come on, you're taking longer than Lucy took.
Okay. I would put Lucy in there.
Yeah.
I think consistently the best right back in the world.
Most in England, isn't she?
So I think you can't... And, she's just someone that whatever she does, she will give you a solid 8 or 10 out of 10. Kira Walsh.
Okay.
Obviously, incredible. Number 6, technically.
6, it's not 6, it's 4. Go on.
Okay.
But you can have it as 6.
Okay. And Ramona Bachmann.
Oh, Bachmann. She's very
like top level. Yeah. I remember when she signed and she was probably, obviously there was G and then there was me and then I'd probably say her was like the next kind of like marquee signing. And I was so excited because I was like, oh my God, like I have this player who's also like extremely technical who we can, and I felt like we just had a really good connection, like the little 1-2 passes, and that's my game.
That's what you
like,
got. That's what I mean, what players bring the best out in you. Right, this is quick fire.
Okay.
So you've got your 6 players, right? And that took half an hour, but this is quick fire.
Okay.
So we're going to go, funniest teammate.
Now?
It could be whenever.
Whenever.
It could be club or country.
Oh, pressure. Maria Torres-Dotter.
Okay. Funniest football memory?
I mean, it's probably something to do with G storming off the pitch in training when she hasn't got her own way. Probably something like that.
Love that. Winning the Champions League or the Euros?
I'm going to have to say Euros because I don't have Champions League.
Favourite goal?
See,
you don't say that Reading one, mate. Just because
the Reading one for the ability of the goal. My first ever World Cup goal.
Yeah,
Mexico. Yeah. That was special. But I also scored another really good one against Liverpool at Staines, where I did about 3 chops. And then,
top 3.
Yeah.
Okay, nice. Messi's roommate?
I was quite lucky. My roommate wasn't Messi.
None of them?
Erin Cuthbert. I room with her at Chelsea. So.
Okay, red card or score an own goal?
Do you know what? I only got my ever second yellow card the other day.
Did you? In your whole career?
My whole career. And my first one was time wasted in front of a free kick and it was 0-0.
Wow. I think I hold the record for England, the most player booked.
Do you?
For the women, yeah. So not only
surely Georgia Stanway's close.
She might be catching up. Look at that. Well, I couldn't believe I had more than Katie Chapman. I was really
that's also true.
That,
I would say red card.
I
would hate scoring.
Bicycle kick or score from the halfway line?
Bicycle kick.
All day. If you could learn another language, what would it be?
Norwegian.
Okay. That would be difficult, isn't it?
It is difficult. I know a little bit, but I would like to know it fully.
When we had a couple of Norwegians at Reading, I was like,
Yeah, no, it's hard.
Over my head.
It's really hard.
Best player you've played against?
Oh. I would say Lauren Holiday, USA.
Okay.
I remember when we played them at Milton Keynes.
What was that? Did she change name right now?
Yeah.
Holiday, what a player.
Yeah, and I remember we played them at Milton Keynes. I think it was the first time I'd played USA and I didn't really know any of the players. I was still quite relatively new and everyone was talking about Abby Wambach and Alex Morgan, and I was kind of sat there like, we need a bit more context to this. Yeah. And then I remember I chased her the whole game.
Yeah, she was a good player.
And she's strong, athletic, technically extremely good. And yeah, when I then got moved out to the wing, so maybe I wasn't doing a very good job. I was very happy about that moment. So yeah, she was top.
Unbelievable player. But guys, that's Fara Meets down with Fran Kirby, the legend Fran Kirby, Mini Messi, whatever you want to call her. They're the names I have for her. If you like, press the like button. Is it subscribe? Is that what you say? And comment.
Just do all of them.
We'd love to hear your feedback. Thanks for watching and we'll see you on the next episode.